Hi all, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing good. Today I am going to discuss about blood pressure. Let's move on to the topic. The blood pressure is the pressure of circulating blood against the walls of blood vessels. So blood pressure is taken using two measurements. The top is systolic and the bottom one is diastolic. So for instance, if the blood pressure is 120 by 80, 120 is the systolic blood pressure and 80 is the diastolic blood pressure. So what do you mean by systolic and diastolic? So systolic means it measures the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats. Diastolic, it measures the pressure in your arteries when your heart rests between beats. In this slide, we can see about the readings of blood pressure. So, the normal blood pressure is less than or equal to 120 over 80 millimeter of mercury. If the blood pressure is low, that is known as hypotension. If the blood pressure is high, that is known as hypertension. So hypotension is if the blood pressure is less than 90 over 60 millimeter of mercury. The elevated blood pressure is if the systolic ranges from 120 to 129 and the diastolic is less than 80 millimeter of mercury. In stage 1 hypertension, the systolic ranges from 130 to 139 and the diastolic ranges from 80 to 89 millimeter of mercury. In stage 2 hypertension, the systolic will be higher than 140 and the diastolic will be higher than 90 millimeter of mercury. And in case of hypertensive crisis, the systolic is always more than 180 and the diastolic is more than 120 millimeter of mercury. In this, we can see about the device which we use to measure the blood pressure. So the name of the device is SPHYGMOMANOMETer. And in this picture, you can see the parts of SPHYGMOMANOMETer. So it consists of a cuff, air tube, bulb which we use to inflate. It consists of a valve to open and close and a manometer to note the reading. Here we can see how to check the blood pressure. We are using a device called SPHYGMOMANOMETer to measure the blood pressure. First, wrap the cuff around the upper arm 2 inches above the elbow. Next, keep the stethoscope at the site of brachial pulse. Start to inflate the cuff to a pressure higher than the systolic pressure. How will you know that? For that, feel the radial pulse with one hand and start to inflate the cuff with the other hand. Inflate the cuff until you fail to feel the radial pulse. Then slowly release it. Simultaneously, note the readings in the manometer. The first sound you hear through the stethoscope is the systolic blood pressure, and the point where the sound stops is the diastolic blood pressure. For instance, at the reading of 110, if you hear the first sound, 110 is the systolic blood pressure. And at the reading of 80, you stop hearing the sound, then 80 is the diastolic blood pressure. So the blood pressure is 110 over 80 millimeter of mercury. In this picture, you can clearly see how to attach the cuff, where to keep the stethoscope, and how to inflate the cuff. and simultaneously you have to note the readings in the manometer. And you can hear the sound like okay. So this sound is known as Korotkov sound. Okay. So when the sound begins, that reading will be your systolic blood pressure, and where you fail to hear the sound or where the sound stops, that is your diastolic blood pressure. Thank you so much for watching this video. Even though the topic is too simple, still many people have confusion in systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, and the name of the device used to measure the blood pressure, that is sphygmomanometer, and the sound, which is known as Korotkov sound. So I hope this would be helpful for you guys in attending some interviews. And if you feel the same, kindly like, share this to your friends and subscribe my channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon button so that you will get the notifications whenever I am uploading new videos. Thank you all once again. See you all again with one more interesting topic. Until then, it's bye from Chebin. Bye bye. Take care.